Alrighty, so it is 7:01, and what I'll do is, Joe, we'll start at your end of the table, everybody just say their name, and that will be our roll call vote.
Joe Alley, present.
Richard Keys, present.
Frank Visconti, present.
Erica Jacobson, present.
Vanessa Rossi, present.
Patrick Upperman, present.
Excellent. We have a quorum. Six. If I put my name down here, we have a quorum with 6 present tonight, so we will open the meeting at 7:02. So our first order of business is to review the minutes from our March 18th meeting, and they are attached to the agenda. Apparently are very prompt at starting at 7:02. Apparently we started out in the last one as well. Entertain a motion to accept.
Motion.
Second.
Any comment or suggested edits? All those in favor of accepting? Aye. Opposed? None. 6-0-0. Also, I will recognize town officials and give approval to speak during our discussions if necessary. Dana, as a member of the public, you are welcome to comment during public comment
I have nothing to say.
and/or comment while as an elected official.
I will go
you
to
can-
the podium and say that if you want me to.
No, that's fine, but yes. So I do want to officially do our public comment section. To receive oral communications from members of the public may address the Finance Committee for up to 3 minutes. The Finance Committee will not engage in discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Seeing no members of the public, Dana said he's not wanting to share anything during public comment. The chair also can share written and email communications received since our last meeting. Oh, good morning, good afternoon.
Good
Do
evening.
you have public comment?
Could I please?
Of course, you have 3 minutes.
I have a few questions,
Okay.
and they are, could you please explain Article 1, the $400,000, what that means? The current capital plan, is that available on the town website? And when does the committee expect to issue their FinCom report?
Thank you. All good there? There have been no written or email communications since March 18th. I think you'll find that we'll answer your questions as we work through our discussion this evening. We also will have public comment on any of the articles specifically. We do not do public comment on the articles that we do not vote on, which are 1 to 16 and 21 to 28. None of those do we have an opinion where will of the town on those. So on this, for each of the different the articles that we do have an opinion on that we voted on, that is, we will do oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the Finance Committee for up to 2 minutes. This segment will be limited to 30 minutes. Please note, comments must be relevant to the agenda item, and the chair may interrupt comments if they're not relevant to the agenda item. And note, direct questions asked may be addressed during the Finance Committee discussion or in the town meeting presentation. So the first order of business is our annual town meeting preparation. That is pretty much our main order of business for tonight. As part of that, I did distribute in soft copy, and attached to the agenda tonight is our letter to Newbury voters, which is usually at the beginning of the Finance Committee appropriations booklet. So this is the letter that we have, like in past years. I can show you last year's. So This is the Finance Committee Appropriations booklet. It's usually the cover letter that goes in there, and that is for us all to review, make edits to, and so this doesn't really need a vote. This is more for us. We're a discussion group here. So does anyone have any suggested edits on this? And this was distributed to all members of the committee in soft copy last week.
So this is the same?
Same, yeah. I think there was one thing. I think I had fire station floor. I think I made, it should be fire station improvements, so it's updated in the printed copy.
Yep.
I noticed that.
So it's not specific to the floor.
And it's not, no, the floor was last year. It was a copy paste from something, so. But these are all related to the articles.
Roof and plumbing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And then Article 15 is the 400,000, and that is to cover our full assessed share of the education assessments that are combined assessments from Triton, Whittier, and Essex North Agricultural and Technical School.
Right.
In order to pay for all of the town services, given the environment of vast inflation, most of the things at the town level are costing more than they did last year to provide the same levels of services. In particular, insurance has gone up, our assessment for retirement has gone up significantly. So this requires, in order to maintain all town services and to pay for the education, we are seeking a override. The amount will be 400,000, and that will be the reminder is that Article 15 is the approval of town meeting to spend the money. It's a two-step. The other step is at the ballot on May 13th. It has to pass there as well, because that is how you get a town votes to allow us to exceed our tax levy capacity under Proposition 2.5.
Do we know if the 400,000 will be on the ballot?
In past years, it hasn't, based on town council and bond
Yeah.
council, the legal language that the 400, there usually is not an amount on there, but the amount is set at town
Town
meeting.
meeting, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yep. And these are the fund balances. I will, again, Tracy will always double check my numbers before this letter goes into the book.
So Eric, I was just gonna add, I was reading Tracy's book, and so
Mhm.
the Whittier Regional Tech, so last year we had 16 students, this year we have 24, so it went up.
That's, yep, that's one of the reasons for the increased assessment, is that it's all three of them. And Whittier is, Whittier's a straight percentage, number of students, time, and they just divide it and they tell us, and we don't have the same cooperation as we do within Triton during the budget process. So it's just a factor of number of students in each year it varies.
What is the parade cost, do you know offhand?
I don't know,
That's
and
right,
last
also.
year, we even had, if you all remember, we had to do a reserve fund transfer last fall to cover, because our assessment ended up being higher than we knew at town meeting time
Right.
last year.
Right.
And all of the capital needs have been approved by the capital planning committee. Their last meeting was
Last week.
last week.
Yes, Thursday?
And, yeah, all of the
Last
records for capital planning should be on the capital planning, on the website under capital planning.
Yeah.
But yes, we received their list, and all of these have been through and have been approved.
Right.
Any suggested edits or changes to the letter?
No.
All right, I say we consider that done. The other part of our agenda on this is, and unfortunately, we don't have the access to be able to broadcast on the screen, But the FinCom booklet, which again was distributed in soft copy to everyone, I just wanted to know if there's any edits. I have a live version if anyone wants to look on the screen here with me on my laptop, but I do have a version that I was gonna make edits in real time. If there's any of the rationales, that's really what we own in this part of it, is to add to any rationales that we think are lacking, or, change in any way. And this also, I wanted to make sure everybody did see this. We added this in after the last meeting. The enterprise, Article 10, is the ambulance enterprise free cash. That's from their own free cash. That's their surplus. That's the money that they then use to make capital investments. Article 10 is seeking $85,000. This is to pay the second year of a 7-year lease. Tracy wanted to clarify when she spoke at our last meeting, she thought it was 10, it's actually 7. So this is year 2, and we have put that in the rationale in the FinCom booklet for Article 10.
Right, I think 10 was the length of the last ambulance lasted 10 years.
Yeah, right, that's what it was,
Yes.
lasted 10 years, this one is now a 7-year.
Article 15, and I apologize for not remembering this exactly, but for the rationale, you do have like the sort of green, yellow, red, kind of, or not even yellow, just green and red.
I don't, but what I will show you all is that on this one, the rationale for Article 15, I'll read it aloud so everybody can see what it is. So this is the override, and this is to support the raise and appropriate the sum of $400,000. And this is, the town is already contributing $374,486 more to school expenses in FY26 than in FY25. This article adds another $400,000 to fully fund the educational obligations. The Finance Committee agrees the schools need more funding and that an override is the best way to provide for it. To pass, both this article and ballot question must be approved by the majority of voters. If approved, the average property tax will increase by about $134 per year. Do we want to add anything to that or change that language at all?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
At the annual town meeting, I was under this Article 15, doesn't that require a 2/3
No.
majority? It does not.
Simple, no. The
Okay.
only ones that require 2/3 are moving from stabilization. Funds from stabilization require 2/3, and the unpaid bill requires 4/5.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is a simple majority.
Thanks.
All right, I'll just say, I'm not sure I understand the necessity of the first sentence.
Okay, yeah,
Does that make sense to you?
yeah,
Like, that's not a criticism.
Yeah.
It's very well written. But I don't think it serves.
yeah.
Can you read it again,
purpose.
Erica?
Well,
It says the town is already contributing $374,486 more to school expenses in FY26 than 25.
but isn't that number sort of explaining the justification for arriving at the 400,000?
No,
Yes.
it's essential. If I understand your question, I think, to me, what it does is, so we're going 776 over last year?
Yeah.
No, I know that's not,
Yeah.
but that's what it does in my head. If I'm just
Right.
rolling out of bed and I don't know what's going on, I go, whoa, we're 776 over last year? That's my reaction to that, with the addition of the first. The fact is, we support the override,
Absolutely.
regardless
Yeah.
of whether or not
Yeah.
we're paying $1 million more. We sat down, thought about it, and we support the override. So, And the reason I was cautious about saying that is I don't want it to seem as though my intent is to somehow obfuscate the obscene amount of money that things cost right now. They do. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
But this is about the override,
Right,
and we support the override, and the override's 400K.
yes.
Just my take. Attempting to look at it with fresh eyes, that's all.
Yeah, so to that point, do we want anything about, do we want to spell out the consequences of the amendment passing?
I can share, and this might involve a couple of people looking at this. During the town meeting, there will be this kind of the presentation that we're gonna do for town meeting this year. Aiming, I will tell, and then we can kind of talk about this in our open way that we do here, is that we have stuff that we can put in the booklet, and then we also have the things that we can say at town meeting, are two different vehicles for sharing information. I think that thing that's gonna be hard to get across in the booklet, but willing to try to do it, is because because this is for education overall.
Right.
However, the Triton budget is the weird part, in that all three towns, if two of the three towns pass the budget, the third town has to pay. So right now, Newbury and Rowley are looking at overrides. And in both towns, they have to pass at the ballot and at town meeting. Newbury is the first to vote on any of the things. We're the first town meeting. Salisbury is widely assumed that they are going to pass because they have the money and they don't need an override. So it is, everyone should kind of consider Salisbury in the check yes column. They're going to fund the education, they're gonna fund Triton. If Newbury passes at town meeting and passes at the polls, regardless of what happens in Rowley, Rowley has to come up with that difference. The budget is the budget. If Newbury doesn't pass it, but Rowley does, we have to come up with that 400,000 without an override, which means that 400,000 is gonna come out of today's operating budget. So Tracy and the board and everybody is going to have to go back and remove items from our town budget.
Might be nice to know what those are.
Yes, and that's gonna be part of it, is what does that look like?
Which I think was Patrick's point. actually.
Yes,
Like, what
is that what's,
Yeah,
Where do you extract it from?
where do we extract that 400,000?
yeah. So there's only three outcomes. Either it passes and the schools are funded, or it doesn't pass, but it passes in Raleigh and we lose 400,000 in services.
In services,
Or it doesn't pass in Newbury, and it doesn't pass in Raleigh, and then the schools lose out.
right,
And then, just to be really clear, so the stuff that is on like all the other articles, like the fire station improvement, the dump truck purchase,
Mhm.
we can't approve those at town meeting, then turn around and say, no, we're not gonna, yeah.
No.
That is not money that we can then play around with.
No.
Right, okay.
no, because, and the other part of that is the idea that so money that's in free cash, money that's in stabilization is for one-time expenditures. We should never, and when I say this, the Board of Selectmen adopted the financial principles, I wanna say in 2016, I have the date in here, but that says that we won't fund our operating budget with influxes of one-time monies. That's what, if we were to say, oh, let's just pull it from free cash, it's plugging a hole with something that's unsustainable. And the select board already said that should not be the way that we behave, and that's not the way that we should run, and that fits with all of the financial principles. And years upon years ago, going back probably about 15, 16 years now, we literally had negative free cash because we were doing that. Our bond rating was horrible, and that's how we ended up. One year we needed I believe there was like a $1.3 million override on the table just to get us back to normal. So,
As it stands, I think our free cash number goes to whatever it is.
It's gonna go to
couple
700,
Yeah,
yeah.
700K.
Yeah.
seven
When all's
hundred
said and
K,
done,
which is the lowest.
that's under best case scenario.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
it's not like you can go fiddling around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
At the end of Tracy, the document that she sent out, the group that did the assessment on Newbury, they talked about how we're well structured in our financial management plan because we're not pulling money out of those one-time accounts to
Right.
pay for our operational budget.
yeah, it's like you think of it that we don't wanna ever add a service or add something without knowing a revenue source for it, which has
Right.
always been like, we need to make sure that we're balancing, and that operating budget needs to be something that's sustainable. And that's why this year, in past years, we've been able to squeeze the budget in order to afford the education. Last year, we had close to an $800,000 increase in education last year, and we were able to squeeze it through the budget. This year, we don't have that room. There's just not that
Right.
wiggle room.
Last year, we were the largest increase.
We had the largest increase of any of them last year,
Yeah.
and this year we're in the middle. Rowley is facing the biggest increase because of their minimum local contribution is largely driving that.
So the booklet itself just makes the positive case for the override, and then at the presentation town meeting, that's when we do the what if scenarios.
Yes, and if you wanna, here, we can all pass this and take a look. This is the first slide, so that's where,
Right,
Yeah.
right, and then, yeah.
and then if you go down to the next slide, if you do the arrows, there we go.
Sorry.
No, this is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll show it this way.
As, you know, Brett, who was here the other night, like, I think was,
Yeah.
commenting, that there's a growing movement to have people in the community at the town meetings who have not previously had any involvement
Yeah.
in civic
Mhm.
engagement before. And I think that's, I think that's starting to happen more. So I think there's gonna be a lot of people there that know nothing about.
Yes.
And that's, have this level of explanation.
That's what I'm saying, there's three outcomes, there's just three outcomes.
Yeah,
Right,
Either we fund the schools, or we don't fund the schools and the students suffer, or we don't fund the schools and also we suffer because the town loses out, that's $400,000 worth of services the citizens are not getting, is what it comes down to.
yes.
Or $400,000 of, or the school, it's more than 400,000, if the budget doesn't pass at the school, then it's like at Rowley and it's a problem, so.
I mean, I think Newbury itself can show that we are supporting education by passing this at town meeting. That is a signal to the other communities that we are on the right path to do that. So, yes, I believe that's,
Definitely good to be first.
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, it's good to be first on this
Right.
one.
Yeah.
So, because then we know what's happening. But it shows the importance of looking at alternative revenue sources, which I think that plays into the short-term rentals. It sets us up to have a revenue source that is not beholden to taxpayers, but to those individuals that are renting Airbnbs, VRBOs within our community. So that's a new tax revenue source, but not placed right on residents directly. The other one is the meals tax, which was enacted last year, has been an additional revenue source. And then I think it also is, I think the PEG is another place where we have another opportunity for additional revenue. So,
Quick question. Why isn't the $400,000 in the $12.8 million education budget? If it's for the schools, the education budget is 12.8, why wasn't $400,000 added to that budget?
I believe the budget is prepared, and this is a question for Tracy, the budget was prepared assuming that is passing.
there's three separate budgets for the three schools. The sum of those three schools adds up to 400. Why wouldn't each of the three schools put in what they really wanted? Why is, this is a little backwards to me. I'm just looking, for an explanation, I would imagine people at town meeting would be asking the same question.
It's to fund our, because our education and our line item in our budget, when you wrap it together, it's all education. And it's not that one of these has pushed us over, all of them have seen an increase. So it's not, and again, the Board of Selectmen just chooses what to put on the warrant. And they chose as an education override to fully fund the education. So do we think we need to add anything to the booklet or to the presentation?
Go ahead.
I had nothing, I just think the more data visualization, the better.
Yeah,
Because particularly if, as Vanessa said, like, you got a bunch of people who haven't been there before, which is great, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But like, data visualization makes life easier.
Yeah.
Just, it helps things move along more quickly, I mean, it's just to me, so. And we actually have technology to be able.
yes, I'm curious to see what the setup's gonna be like in the auditorium and what the projections are.
It's gonna be in the gym.
It's gonna be, right, the gym. Yeah, I remember what it is, yeah, that's where I need to see what it's gonna look like
Yes.
for the
Oh,
gym.
in the gym?
It's gonna be in the gym
We've
because
had a
there's
decent
a
setup there before.
play going on, so we can't use the auditorium, which is why we had to, because it was also set during school vacation week,
Right.
and they wanted to make sure that as many residents as possible could
Right.
attend, and knowing that school vacation week is a challenging time. But again, Board of Selectmen sets the dates, not us, so anyone who's mad about the dates, not us, we just go with it.
I think it was an availability of the auditorium that was booked for the play.
Right.
So that's why they were gonna do it
Yeah.
vacation week, and then everybody said, no, we're not gonna be here, so.
Right.
Then
So
do
that's why
enough
they switched it.
graduations, if they do the chairs like the full.
Oh, yeah,
the
there's
full
plenty of
class,
room.
There's plenty of room.
Yeah.
You don't have to have too many people in the bleachers, because
And
the bleachers
there's
are hard to sit in for.
The parking is, there's enough parking, there's more parking there than at NES.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
So to have people be able to come in. So do we think we need the line saying how much more we're already paying, that entry line in, or do we want to strike that?
I'm for striking it too. I think it's better to just make a positive case. So.
Right.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think that,
Awesome. That
I
changed
think
for
to
me.
your point, we had the president of the PTA here last week, right? Saying, I'm gonna have all these,
Yeah.
the Rowley PTA is gonna babysit for them, so you're gonna have a lot of people that normally don't attend.
I mean, anecdotally, I know many people are coming in for, but I think there's probably other people in the
Yes.
well, traditionally have not had a lot of civic engagement, being more, especially, basically because of this issue in many cases.
Yes, and I think it's great for residents who have a vested interest. We all have a vested interest in our education system, and those individuals with children in the district have an even, more important responsibility. And I know that it's not easy, but I will say it every year, it's the night to skip soccer, baseball, whatever. It's okay, your kids' education and your involvement, and bring the kids, they're welcome, they're absolutely welcome. Annie's been going since before she could read. Like, she literally would sit there with crayons to make it through this. So they're welcome, they're part of our city and are part of our town, and they are part of this conversation, so. So that's that one. The only other one that I thought would be, that I wanted to kind of call attention to, if you all haven't seen it yet, is the rationale around PEG. And from last year, just the votes from last
That was
year.
Article 18, right?
That is Article 18 this year.
Yep.
And last year, the same thing was on. Last year. There's always there's always one article related to PEG, which is to appropriate the money. And this year, that is Article 7, I believe, right?
It's the 65K or something.
65K, yeah, article. I think I know these off the top of my head. By the time we get to town meeting, I will.
Article 7.
Article 7, all right.
Article 7.
So Article 7 is going to seek to appropriate $65,181 from the receipts, so the money brought in.
Yep.
And actually, this would be interesting if you guys want to change the rationale on this at all. But the rationale right now for Article 7 is this appropriation funds the town's media operation, including wages, equipment, and various other costs associated with the cable access programming. The current balance in the PEG Access Special Revenue Fund is $1,153,009.10. The other pieces of information is that over the past 5 years, we have averaged in revenues for PEG, over the last 5 years, our revenues, the amount of revenue brought in by this to the town is $173,000 per year. Over the same period, we are averaging $85K per year in expenses. So we are accumulating a surplus of $88,000 a year that is going into an account and sitting. So over the last 5 years, we've put together a surplus. There's a surplus of $441,000 over the past 5 years.
And we've been accumulating for 14 years. Right?
Yes.
All said and done.
Yes. The reality is that the funds, we can't be effectively used, and so that's how we've arrived at that $1.5 million balance. So I'm wondering if we should include any of that on the rationale for Article,
Yeah, I think
Article 7?
I think the more detail is better.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right, I can add that language into the rationale for Article 7. Because I think that helps, like, that was the one that, like, as soon as I thought about that this year, I was like every year we're adding $85,000 and that is money that once it comes into the town coffers, it doesn't matter who paid for it. It comes in, it was negotiated on behalf of the town. Again, looking for a revenue source. And that was a revenue source that was established. And I think that, so that's for, we can add that into 7. And then for 17, and I can share this 18, sorry, 18. So this is, and I'll share this slide, but I'll talk through it here. So the original plans, the funds were originally set aside for a 501c3, PEG takeover, or production studio. So that was a very well-intentioned original plan for this money. That's why town meeting voted it to put it into a special fund. However, over the remaining years since then, there's been no organization or group of individuals come forward to take on the PEG operations. We use the funds to fund what we do today, and it pays for itself, yet we can't spend enough of it every year. There's not enough to generate it. So the current balance is that 1.15 million. So the article to revoke it is to revoke the fund, move money to the general fund, which means it will move to free cash. It will not change how we do PEG operations today. They will still be done the same way, we will still fund it the same way, but it will now be part of the annual operating budget. So they won't be a special article anymore because it'll be part of the general fund. And that surplus,
Every year.
that surplus every year can go into other things like our town services, our education, like it becomes part of that non-tax levy part of our receipts.
Right, right.
And that would start in fiscal year 20.
Next year.
It would start in 27.
Yep.
Yeah. Which means as we're preparing a budget next year, we are gonna prepare a budget with an extra, already baked in an extra $88,000, like approximately.
Right, it's not available in this year's budget.
No.
And Angie,
Wanna
you
make sure
sure there's that
that
money
was-
again?
I don't know.
You're useful enough, because I bet you
We're,
dismal.
yeah,
And the point being is, like, I bet you it's subsidies.
probably.
So, I mean, if I ask you, taxpayer, your capital is not even keeping pace with inflation. It is dying. You might as well be burning that money. When
So
it could
that's-
actually be put to use today.
Right.
Yeah, because I remember thinking about town accounts are like no deal. It's such a scam. Someone's making a fortune out of it. That's not us.
So that is I'm just trying to see back to what they,
So, just thinking back to Article 7, so that has to be really the setup to Article 18. Just
Yes.
I'm thinking it through because, to your point about more people showing up, sticking around for Article 18.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
there should be
It's a
reference to
challenge.
the later
Yes.
article
Yeah.
to come
Okay.
somehow. I
Yeah.
think that
okay,
just so that people, you know, people have heard about the zone about,
Right.
and then they think, oh, that's it, and then we.
We're putting that 1.15 million number in
Yeah.
in the language around explaining Article 7, we'll say, okay,
Right.
later on, we need to vote to move that money essentially.
yes.
Why is this the order of things? I mean, is there any?
I know
reason
that
behind
I know that, the order did change from when we had the first review of the warrant, to move all of the financial articles up to the front and then go to the bylaw changes.
Yep.
So I think 17 is the short-term rentals.
Yep.
So that's a financial, and then PEG is the last one of financials at 18. And then it goes into bylaws. And again, that's something that,
That's gonna be empty auditorium for the bylaws.
yes, yeah, oh yeah.
Everybody is actually running.
It's gonna, yeah. So here's the language I was gonna add to it. It's, so this is, I gave you the first language, and then we can add this to it. The current balance is 1.153,00910. It should be noticed that the PEG revenue has averaged $173,000 over the past 5 years. Expenses over the same time have averaged $85,000 per year, meaning that there's an $88K surplus each year on average that is unable to be spent under the current conditions.
I would say unable to be put to work.
Yes. Multiple years of this surplus accumulation has led to the current PEG special revenue fund balance of 1.15 million. Article 18 seeks to change this moving forward. And then people can read, and then we can look at the rationale on 18.
Yeah.
And so the rationale on 18 is okay, this one has a long rationale. Okay. 18. In October of 2015, the town voted to accept the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 58, Sections 4.3 of the Massachusetts General Laws to establish a PEG access and cable-related fund as a special revenue account effective for fiscal year 2016. Prior to that, all fees collected from customers by cable companies were deposited directly into the town's general fund. The funds were segregated in the hopes that a 501c3 may be interested in taking over the public, educational, and government, PEG, programming operations, and the funds would be available for their use. In addition, we had hoped to build a new production studio when a new town hall was constructed. To date, there has been no demonstrated interest from any citizens or organization to undertake such an effort. There is a balance of $1,153,009.10 in the special revenue fund. If revoked, these funds would be closed out to the town's general fund to later be certified as free cash. These funds could be committed in the future to defer the increasing costs of education funding or other town operations. PEG operation will remain the same as it is today, and the funding of this operation would appear as part of the line item budget annually, operating budget.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad it has the 2016 date in there too, because
It's 10
it
years,
reinforces a lot of spend.
Yeah.
10 years, and
It's really effective whenever Alicia explains like her personal involvement in the creation of this.
yeah,
Because, you know, her intimate knowledge of it, but then also like demonstrating that, you know, even though she was instrumental in this, she's supporting.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
so,
Yeah,
times have
Yeah,
changed.
right.
and-
yeah.
Erica, question? This money comes from Comcast, and it's, the Comcast people pay in, not necessarily all the taxpayers. So there's an unequal distribution.
Once the town negotiated with Comcast,
Yeah.
just like, so if you do a renovation on your house and you pay a special permit fee,
I'm addressing this, that would the town be better off to tell Comcast not to charge their subscribers this $170,000, and it would come out of the taxpayers equally distributed. So a guy who owns a $5 million house is gonna pay a chunk of money in his taxes. He's only paying Comcast $200 a month. The guy who owns a $200,000 house, he's gonna pay considerably less in real estate taxes. He's still paying $200 to Comcast. So there's an unequal distribution. Again, if the town wasn't collecting this, then it wouldn't be a problem, we'd get it out of the tax collection.
it's not a tax collection. It's a special, it's fees collected by Comcast that were negotiated in behalf of all residents to allow Comcast to come into here. So I don't think we want to say, let's walk away from $173,000 worth of revenue that people can choose or not to have Comcast. There are alternatives. You don't have to do it. It's not a tax because it's not a required service. So it's money as soon as it comes from Comcast to here, it has nothing to do with where it came from. It's now becomes town asset, not who paid it. As soon as you make the decision to have Comcast, Comcast is telling you that that's the fee. This was done on behalf of the town to do something good to allow them to come in, and it's not unusual, all the other communities do it as well, so.
And it funds the PEG stuff that serves the whole town, so getting rid of it would then, the town would be on the hook for how we're gonna do PEG.
Now we're gonna have
How are
another,
we gonna do $65,000 worth of PEG every year?
yes,
We- you
yes.
know, so,
We would have
yeah.
to get rid of, we'd have no revenue stream to support
Right.
the services we have today.
Right.
We would need to take out something else in the budget in order to continue the
Right.
operations that are currently funded by this revenue stream.
The
So,
revenue stream would come out of all the taxpayers on a much more equitable distribution than it's currently happening.
But the distribution of the benefit, which is the PEG that everybody benefits from, is the same for everyone. So if we get rid of the revenue that's coming in from Comcast, some people are gonna see a difference, but everyone's gonna see the lack of, or no, everyone's gonna see that $65,000 still has to be generated somewhere out of our budget. to
right,
pay
it
for
would
the
have
PEG
to come out of some other place in the budget.
Yeah.
We're trying to grow revenues.
Right.
Sorry, short-term rentals,
Right.
we don't have any revenue.
Yeah, without going back to taxpayers for more
Yes.
in their property taxes. We can't go back to them for more without overrides, which is why we're now in the position of the education override, is because all of the expenses of the town, including everything, is more expensive to deliver.
Yep.
So,
As I understand it, Comcast pays for that's their CODB, right?
That's their, yeah.
That is, they pay for the privilege
Mhm.
to be able to come into your town, say, we're drilling for oil or whatever else, right? You're paying for the
Yep.
privilege to come to the town. And to my knowledge, there is no line item on an Xfinity bill that is your surcharge for fees charged to.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
As someone who's cut the cable cord.
Yeah, yeah.
But is
There-
it-
There isn't any line item there, that's their cost of doing business, and no one's Xfinity bill will go down.
No.
Should that source of revenue be eliminated, that would be shooting oneself in the foot.
Yeah, that would be, from our position of thinking about the greater good of the entire town, this is not something we should recommend that we disassociate this Comcast agreement.
Once you get Verizon and others, the company, we get nothing from them. so.
Right.
It should change, this legislation somewhere in there, that should, because that's nuts. And it's right now. And if I were Xfinity, I would be complaining about it as well. Because they're paying for the privilege.
So basically, if this article on pay, if it's approved, it's just switching it back to the way it
To what originally was, yes, for yes,
before
exactly.
they set up the-
Yep, that's exactly what it does, is that it brings us back to,
We should have explained that last year, we're just switching it back to the way it was
yes,
before we set up the,
yeah. And not to completely rehash old things, but last year, there was a motion made on the floor to postpone this vote, and that did not pass. 98 people voted, of 213, 98 to 95 to postpone it, so it did not get postponed, so then they called a vote on it, and 93 people voted yes to revoke, and 106 voted no, for 199. We'll say, between those two votes, 14 people left.
right.
And since that meeting a year ago, there has been no interest that I have heard of. Dana, as a member of the select board, have you seen any citizens come forward with a plan to use the money?
Mike Doyle came forward and requested to be put on the agenda to form a media committee, and Alicia did not oblige that. So that's what I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
So there has been some interest in forming a media committee again, but it just hasn't been put on the agenda.
Just to be clear, is the media committee a 501c3?
Well, that's a really good question. And they kind of go together. And this is just Dana, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know much about forming 501s or anything like that, but what I would envision is a 501 has to have its own committee. It has to have a chair and it has to have a board.
but it doesn't have to be associated with the town.
But it doesn't, well, it would not be associated with the town. As a matter of fact, if we did a 501 and then that money was to shift into that 501, the town, it wouldn't be, the town would have nothing to do with it. So.
Right, so
Even the operating expenses of the 501 would come out of itself.
so if
Via the revenues that it gets from Comcast.
if an individual or group of individuals formed a 501c3 and brought it to the town, to the select board,
It would take a town meeting vote if the 501c was formed to move the paid
Right.
money from where it is right now into the nonprofit.
right,
And-
but that's
and-
not
and-
the same as a
and-
media committee.
What's that?
It's not the same, media committee
No,
would
it's
be a
not the same-
town,
it's
so
not the
that's,
sa-
so I
it's
can
not
see
the
why,
same as-
that's why it hasn't moved forward, is that it just came as they set up another town committee that can't use the money. they need to do the legwork to be a 501c3 in order to approach the town with a proposal, and that has not
I
happened.
think that was Mike's intention, but it
That's
wasn't, it
not the
wasn't.
way it was.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it wasn't presented probably in the correct format, but that was his intention.
So the two would not be mutually exclusive anyway, correct?
What, excuse me?
The two would not be mutually exclusive anyway. If these
Yeah.
pass, PEG money moves. Doesn't actually go anywhere, but it moves.
Yeah.
Someone can still form a 501c3 with the town's approval, PEG money can move
Right.
to them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing preventing that.
Right.
And if anything,
But I think
This is a more
trying
expeditious fashion,
to,
we
the
should do
$1.1 million, once it gets moved into the general fund, I think it would be even a harder sell. It'd be a really hard sell to yank it out of there and put it into the 501. I don't really see that happening.
I don't see either of them happening, but that's not, I mean, that's, that's to be said. Look, if somebody puts together a whiz-bang 501c3 and says, check this out, we have all this, it's up to the townspeople anyway.
Of course.
Yeah.
Whatever the little label is on the account that it's in, I don't think would or should matter too much.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's.
Well, the question that was proposed from Erica to me was, has anyone shown any interest
Yeah.
in doing this?
Right.
And yes, there has. That's the answer to the question.
I think that over the past dozen or so years, there's been an occasional crop up or somebody asking about something or what have you. It's just nobody's ever done it. It's one of those things.
I think it was a well-intentioned at the time, and especially when you hear Alicia tell it and others who were involved, it was very well-intentioned. But in the course of the last 10 years, it has not materialized. And in those 10 years, we can bring this again, it's up to the voters. And again, this is a simple majority as well. For this. Are there any other articles that anybody wants to add to the language, and the add subtract in the language from the booklet? The rest of them are very standard. I've looked back to last year's and previous. I have too many binders of budgets in my office. So I've gone back to different ones each year. Again, that should be, everything should be as it is there. And then the only item for us to talk about is just in theory, and we can decide whether or not we're gonna meet again or whether we share edits. The presentation, given the length of our warrant and the planning board and bylaws, I do know that people are going to be watching the clock. So aiming for informative yet shorter presentations. To that end, the flow of the presentation right now is an overview of just that one thing, talking about how we get to town meeting, especially if there's gonna be a lot of new people, as you've said, is how did we get here? Why does it work this way? And that's the select board, and that goes through, the select board is the one that actually sets the warrant. It's why it's called a warrant, it's to warn, and then the articles are there, but the motion that is read is what we're actually voting on at town meeting. So that's there. The operating budget and what's driving the differences is the next. And then just the, kind of a operating budget, 51% of it's going towards education, and then the other big chunks are public safety is 15%. Employee benefits is 10% this year. That went up by 9% over last year. Like, that is really driving a lot of why we're in a crunch on our budget this year. Is our budget is not in a crunch because we've dramatically expanded services the cost to deliver the same services is
Right.
higher.
Yeah.
The school employees are under 16.12% medical increase and
Mhm.
10.33, they're all in the same group. So that applied to the city employees, the town employees also.
Right.
That's where the big increase came in.
The auto check premium costs are, honestly, they're nuts. They're nuts, because that used to be why, not why, but that used to be, like, if anything, the only benefit of teaching was like, the benefits are good, you know, it's like, and then like, it is, it's nuts. Their out-of-pocket expenses are really substantial.
Yeah.
And looking across, like, you know, sure, if you look at the benefits package overall, like, it could be good, but you're not paying a mortgage and sending kids to college and paying your healthcare premiums and making the max contribution to your 403B. It's not happening. And there's no, you know, we had discussed the possibility of a two-teacher household anymore, to live anywhere within commute range of this town. No way. No, absolutely not. So I think it's important to note that those people not only do see paltry pay increases that don't keep pace with their increase in healthcare costs.
I forget what Brian, he said if it was 75 or 80%, and then they had to pay the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And that's not, and that's even, I mean, and if you have a family that not to whistle all those premium costs, and then you pay something, there's another 10K a year in deductibles and whatever else, and it's like, and they wonder, like, we can't get anybody to work. It's like, yeah,
Right.
You expect a master's and they need to live in their parents' attic, you know, to get them to come here.
Well, that's why we have a short-term rental.
Yeah, short-term rental and accessory dwelling units.
We'll stick them there too.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
That-
it's,
and the chapter 70 funding going to
Oh.
continue to go down.
So we have to
Yeah.
add more.
Yeah, the chapter 70 money has gone up nothing in compared to what the expenses for running the schools is
Yeah.
absolutely nothing each year. It hasn't changed at all, and it's more and more on the backs of the three towns to come with that.
It's a continuous outpace.
It just every year, they just. So we have our overview of our funds. Free cash is 2.5 million, stabilization is 330,000. Land sales, 59, close to 59,000, and reserve has 141 in it. Nothing is gonna touch land sale or reserve fund. Nothing's coming out of those. And then the only things that I was planning to kind of cover ahead of getting into the warrant is the PEG that we just went through. Let's talk about PEG and talk about the Article 15, the education override.
Right.
And then just simply mention the capitals, which are on Article 11 and 12, which is 1.8 for free cash is Article 11, and that's fire station, dump truck, Newberry Elementary roof replacement last year of that, and Newberry HVAC replacement last year of that. And then stabilization is 250, which is firefighter gear, fire department, Lucas mechanical chest device, and 200,000 for Newberry Elementary interior renovations.
Yep.
And that is it. I
Yeah.
think we just go with short and sweet, and then as discussions happen, we can weigh in.
Yeah, agreed.
Does the committee think we need to meet one more time before town meeting, or are we okay circulating this presentation, I'm gonna give Tracy the okay on the FinCom booklet and our letter tomorrow, and then the presentation, we're all set, and a couple of us can look at it
Yeah.
offline. We don't need a quorum for that.
No. I think we're good.
I think we're good, so I think we can set our next meeting for the day of town meeting, which is the 29th.
So no meeting on the 22nd?
No meeting on the 22nd. I additional meetings. I know we've already done like, I think, three meetings on the warrant already. I think we're gonna know them by heart.
You guys wanna meet while I'm in Italy next, that's all.
And I'm not here next week because I'm accompanying my daughter's robotics team to the World Championships.
Nice, where is it?
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas?
Yes, so her little private high school is one of 4 teams in Massachusetts that is going.
Oh, good, good.
It'll be a balmy 96.
It's gonna be, yeah, I had to find my summer clothes because, it
Yes.
snowed here today. So,
Yep,
yeah, so
yep.
next week I am not available, and so we will move right to the town meeting. We'll probably have a meeting called at 6:30, just so we all arrive, and if we need to talk to each other ahead of time, that's why we will make sure we have a town meeting, a FinCom meeting posted so that we can engage with discussion with each other if we have last minute things. So, with that, I will entertain entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Adjourned at 8:02.